can't let him do that. Ron's advice to her is, it was priceless. Ron's advice is, take him to go see him. I think Ron's thinking as soon as he figures out what it's all about, Spencer's not going to want to join. So Spencer and his mother drove down to Dallas to hang out with the Hare Krishnas for a couple of hours, so Spencer could decide whether he was going to join or not. And I'm here to inform everybody that Spencer thought better of it.
Spencer forgot completely.
I have one question. What was wrong with the circus? Those kids wanted to run off and join the circus.
Yeah. Do they still have the, is it 3x5 or 5x8 note cards?
Yeah, I wonder about that too.
In day camp, does all the wives do that?
No, we didn't.
No.
But we
You'd
did
have
it
to-
in Orlando after I went.
You'd
Yeah.
have to fill out a card
Right,
on
for
each
every
kid
kid.
each day.
Yeah.
There's got to be a little sprint.
You know, 2 summers ago, Fred and I went to, I've got the t-shirt, went to YMCA Camp Dudley, which is the first YMCA resident camp. Fred's dad is an alumnus, Fred is an alumnus. But to this day, if you go to their archives, we went to see it, they keep cards on the kids who come to camp for 2 weeks, and they write their name, talk about a goal for the kid, and then at the end, they write a little thing about how the kid did. And so that tradition that Ron taught us about day camp goes all the way back.
14,
I didn't find out until 2 years ago. It goes all the way back to the inception of.
I wonder if they had postcards on us when we were in high school.
Yeah. I worked here as a child. I think we signed up the first or second day in your office. You had 1 chair and 1 desk in the Greenwood gym. And my mother said, come on, you guys are gonna come down here. So I think we were in the first 10 that signed up. And I worked under him, and then from there, you were next, but I worked for Jerry is what it was. And it was the experiences of going with them, and then Kendall after that, of doing the Indian Guide campouts, all over the camps, all these various places. We would go, and it would 2 of us in every one of these, or maybe 3, they would put on these things for hundreds of these people. Well, those experiences and the stuff with the haggis and stuff that we did ended up molding me to become a concert promoter all over the country. And it was because of this that helped me try to get the skills of working with large groups of people, organizing a lot of events. And I still put on 80 to 120 events a year. And I have
Can we get
great
tickets, man?
I have some great stories back there. We don't need to have the time to do that. I think one of the only story from day camp, which I was a counselor, is the one with the BB guns. And I think Jerry almost got fired for that. Is that we were at the end of 1 week session. What camp was that?
No, I don't know. It was at an old McDonald's farm.
Was that way out there? And for some reason, at the very end of this camp, Jerry, I don't know who, I don't remember how it started. I just remember that the counselors all had guns.
Yes.
And Jerry had a gun. And we all started shooting at each other. Behind the bus, it got 2 holes in the radiator. And the kids were hiding around watching the counselors and Jerry.
Well, they were enjoying it a lot.
Oh, they were watching it. People got hit with BBs inside their skin. I mean, we were going at it, and I heard a week or 2 later that Jerry almost got fired for that. Because the kids went home. You should have seen the counselors. They were shooting BB guns at each other.
Again, is this the mature adult?
Jerry, Susie's heard this for the first time.
There are some things that shouldn't go any further.
What goes on at the
I'd like to say it wasn't the truth.
And the reason Jerry didn't get fired was this is the first time I've heard this.
To change the subject. I still have a scar on my thumb.
Oh,
Who was telling me that?
Last night.
Yeah, tell the story.
I remember that story.
It was that same farm, and it had rained for several days the night before, and all the creeks had risen, and but it had dried up, and we went out, and people were going out and hike stuff. We came to this little area where the creek had filled up, and there was just a pond out there, and there was this large large snapping turtle.
Yeah.
Big, I mean, all the way around. And we caught it, got it in a trash can and brought it back to camp. And everybody was standing around looking at it, and Jerry goes, "No, you guys, beware, that you're gonna watch out for those snapping turtles, they snap. Let me show you." Got a stick about 12 inches long, and he just this twig, the stick, and he holds it down on the front of the snapping turtle. The snapping turtle's got about a 13-inch neck. Grabs his thumb. And he pulls the this hanging out in front of him, and that snapping turtle goes, "Come on." And I think it ripped off
I still have a scar, yeah.
the tip of the snap.
And then, so I called Ed that night, I don't remember where we were, but I thought I remember at some theater, and we called and I said, "Ed, we had an accident at camp."
Remember that.
And Ed's like really worried, I said, "Somebody got bit by a snapping turtle." He said, "Oh no, are they all right?" And I went, "Finally." I said, "Oh, Ed, it was me." And he went, "Oh, well, good."
That's exactly. I remember that. I told that.
Lots of love there.
Try how I put out up at Camp Grady Spruce. Now, Ed mentioned that we had, 1,500, 2,000 Highway and Tri-Highway kids. Well, we went to Camp Grady Spruce, and I don't know how many, there were several hundred. And and I had the van, the old van. So and somebody else was driving the bus, so they all coming back, and we left Camp Grady Spruce, and I had, 10 kids in the van, whatever.
Only 10, Jerry.
Only 15.
I don't know. It was loaded.
Only 10, I'm sure.
Yeah. Whatever. So we leave Grady Spruce about a half a mile, there's all this fire and this grass heading toward the houses. And I think I sent you the article, didn't I, Jeff? Because my wife kept track of all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you did.
And so, hey, there's a fire over here. So I get all the guys out of the bus, or the van, and so we started stomping on it, getting whatever we could find to try to put it out. And then after a while, here comes the fire department, and of course they put it out. So we come back, and the guys called the newspaper. So they wrote a big article about the Richardson YMCA Highway. We're all heroes. We put out a fire. So anyway, there wasn't 15 in the van, but there was a lot.
I gotta go one with Spencer. I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm raising money for this hospital. I'm reading the what's happening this weekend thing, and there's a guy coming through town with a piano concert by the name of Spencer Brewer. And I'm thinking, there can only be one Spencer Brewer.
There is something on that.
And at that point in my life, I didn't even know he played the piano, much less organized all these other things. And so I went down to the box office and bought a ticket, and then I said to the guy, I said, "Any chance of, seeing Spencer Brewer?" "Oh, no, he's in the green room, you can't bother him." I mean, big deal concert master here, And so I said, if somebody gets a chance, please ask him if he's ever heard of Ed Ellis. And apparently somebody did, and so at the intermission, Spencer and I spent some good time together talking about the Richardson YMCA.
I was missing your pork chops. I'd forgotten you had those great big pork chops. I saw those pictures last night.
Yeah,
I forgot all about that.
actually so had I, but.
It's kind of changed color.
Yeah.
I'm actually in the middle of writing 2 or 3 books right now, and one of the books, there's a large, I told Jerry about this, there's a large chapter on what we did at those Indian guide camps. Because the cow patty fires, painting thousands of gold rocks. You were talking about the chemicals in the bonfire last night. You also remember we used to put, me and a few other guys, up on top of a tree with kerosene soaked toilet paper roll. That we would throw down into a bowl of gasoline in the middle of these things. And we had a horse once with a flaming arrow going through that. And I keep thinking the liability of all of that.
We couldn't spell risk management.
The more I hear, the more I believe that we influence these kids by showing them what not to do. I was gonna say, the Indian guides, I remember when Bobby and I were out there, the deal was there was a fire snake that would come out of the lake, and wasn't there like a carpet or something that was dragged into the fire in front of the kids?
No.
It fits in with everything else I heard.
Different techniques.
That's a myth.
Because I remember the chief one time, there was like a little dip down to the lake.
Right.
And the chief one time, the carpet or whatever we were dragging got caught, and he goes over to it and he goes, fire snake not see too well in the dark. And so he had to unhook it.
And Ron was, White Shark was there running things, and I was given the task of getting under there and setting the potassium chloride and the sulfuric acid, and I'm in, underneath the fire, getting it all set up, and oops. Up went the fire, and I bagged out, and we had to start all over again.
How many of you remember the medicine man at the camp?
Henry Howell?
And we had in the Dakota tribe, Dick Hastings, I remember his name.
I remember Dick Hastings.
Dick was more than a little crazy. And he was our medicine man. And we were in charge of the big magic trick of the night, what was it, 400 kids out there? And we came up with a deal where we made a teepee. It was about this high, made of about 8 sticks, and had a little flap in the front. And Dick set this whole stage up, and he selected a little brave, happened to be his son, who had put on a different shirt. We all had little red t-shirts on. And little Hastings had on a different tribe shirt, and Dick said, come on up here, and you get the teepee. Then he invited our tribe to dance around. Well, the deal was, he got inside the tent, took off his shirt, put on his red shirt, slipped out the back, and joined the kids going around. And then everybody sat down, and Dick comes over with a big stick and knocks the teepee about 40 feet away, and it's empty except for the little white shirt. And the kids were just blown away. He went up to have coffee, and his dad came over to me and he said, what happened to that kid? And we didn't tell him.
What happened to that kid?
I was wondering what anybody knows about, like Kay Coleman, Mildred Fuller, Betty.
We tried to
Wright,
find her, to see if she, we
Anybody
didn't
know
think she
any
was
of
I
alive.
was talking to Ed Curran last night. Remember Ed Curran?
Yeah.
And he said she's deceased.
Yeah.
Oh, Kay
Okay.
Coleman?
Yes.
What about Kay?
Mildred died
Oh, really?
a long time ago. That was Jackie Way's mother.
Yes.
Cliff Way's
Cliff Way, yeah.
Yeah.
mother-in-law.
We thought Cliff might be coming, actually.
Well, Jackie
about that.
is
Yeah.
seriously ill,
Yes.
terminal cancer, and he just didn't want to leave her.
Yeah.
Did
But
anybody reach Ed Kendall, find out where he is?
Ed Kendall, he was in charge of Indian guides when I was the chief of the Longhouse.
Right.
He and I went to a convention in Detroit. Yeah.
He's still there?
He might be, I don't know.
At the Raptors bar.
That was a
those,
long time ago.
Those women secretaries were a big part of the Y.
Oh, they were.
Hey, so they ran the wire, just
Yeah,
about.
Kay did.
I remember.
Right.
She ran the wire.
Dorothy Richards?
I remember.
Dorothy Richards, yeah.
Dorothy Richards,
I called,
yeah.
I tried to get a hold of Boone before we came and said, we need to get your mom here. She passed away, I guess, 4 years ago. And,
How many of you remember Jane James?
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
The first one.
First one. I remember Betty when I
Joe
came home to
worked
take care of my mother. I was 38. I had walked into this Y for 20 years, but I had a week to spend in Richardson because I was taking care of my mother. So I thought I'm going to go over to the Y. I walked into the Y and Betty looked up in 20 years. She just looked at me and said, "Hi, Bobby, how have you been?" I almost fell over.
We had an interesting situation when she came, first time we had a woman there, and they said, we're gonna pay X number of dollars, they said, to be there. And I said, no way, you're gonna do the same thing that the men have. And that was the first big change from the whole thing, yeah.
of stories about Ron I want to tell.
Oh, yeah.
The first memory I have of the Richardson Y is I think Mom and Dad both were coming up for a meeting with Mr. Charlie and Ron. And it was at the gym. And we were just little kids. And so they let us run wild in the gym while they're having their meeting up in the office. And we were always chasing YMCA, the cat.
Yes.
The YMCA.
That's right. I forgot about YMCA.
We chased that cat all over that.
Actually, there were 11 YMCAs.
I don't know
Kind of like
which
last
one
year.
this was. But that, we chased that cat all over there, and there were several places in that gym that I don't think anybody else had seen except us. And we were always hoping, and we did this several times, we were always hoping that Ron would never find us and kick us out of there, because we were having such a great time. But we'd hear him down there go, it was either Dad or Ron, boys, where are you? He just, oh, this is so much fun. So anyway, that was a great one. That was a great influence on my life. And then the other story I have involves Spencer's brother, George, and a 5th grade trip that we took in the White Shark. Ron drove the White Shark from Richardson all the way through New Mexico, all the way up to Estes Park, all the way back, all by himself. It was just a bunch of us 5th grade kids. And the whole trip we spent pretty much sitting up in the front, talking to Ron. And the advice we got from him during that trip, I think, shaped all our lives. But one of the story I have about George is one of the things that we did was when we got to Estes Park, we hiked up to one of the glaciers, played on the glacier, and started walking down. It was a hot day. It was a summer. And so we all decided that some of us were going to cool off by jumping in the river. Well, the river comes straight off the glacier. So there were 3 of us that were going to jump in there. It was George and Steve Martin and myself. We were all going to cool off. And so George happened to be the one who stripped down first. And so he went running and just jumped in the water and splashed. And he wasn't in the water that long. He was standing straight like this. And Steve and I were just looking at him. He goes, and he starts trying to walk out. And Steve just started putting our clothes back. That was it. So George was the only brave one.
Brave probably isn't the right word.
Check the parking brake.
Remember that? Remember that? I don't remember it, but I'm sure I did.
I think when Bob and I, we were going up to Possum Kingdom to Camp Grady Spruce, we were looking at you, and I swear it was every 15 minutes you're checking the parking brake.
I remember he did that too.
Oh,
And there's a story behind that.
that's right, because I was, at, what's his name? Who, the camp?
Right.
Yeah, Ray Bean. And Ray Bean, and he was a big hero for me when I was a kid. And he let me take a camp of the big truck, which shouldn't have been at all. And we got out, and I had forgotten to put down. And it knocked down from then on. All me. I never again. Not for years.
That explains what's wrong with our brakes.
Now, Sandy, Ron, we're going to.
Here's a quick one. You said, you've done a lot of stuff. We've been together for a lot of things. But then you did some very great things